Hello, hello, hello. Nicole Roberts Jones here. Happy Monday, y'all. Happy Faith Purpose Profit Monday. So, what I like to call FPP Live, a time I connect all things faith with purpose and profit so that you can do two things. One, live as the highest and best version of who God created you to be. And two, to learn all the ways you are meant to live abundantly, which for me means multiple streams of income around it. So, I'm always excited to be here with you to share and give you insight and strategy to get paid for what you know. So, as you come in, number one, tell me hello. Hey, Renata. Who else is here? And look, Renata knows what to do. Tell us where you're from. Hey, Nikki in Florida. So if you guys see me looking to the side, know that I'm looking at your comments. Know that I want to make sure I stay connected to you as I pour into you. So last week we started a series, and really it's for the first part of my framework. And before I get into that, our conversation for today is batteries are included. Now, as I was thinking about and praying about, hey, Sanji and ATL, as I was thinking about and praying about what I would share with you this week, what kept coming in my mind is how many of you guys remember this? Christmas morning, my favorite time of year, still to this day, but when I was little, I used to love it because Santa came, right? And I'd run to the Christmas tree and open up my gifts. And if it didn't already have batteries in it, I'd be mad because that meant I couldn't play with it. That means I'd have to wait a whole day for my parents to go to Walgreens or Safeway back in the day, or not Safeway, what did these call Save-Ons, which is now CVS, to go buy batteries. But when batteries were included, that meant that I could automatically play with my toy. Do y'all remember that? Well, I wonder if you realize that God put you here on earth with batteries included. Matter of fact, you were already wired for the very way He wanted to use your gift for good. So that's really our conversation for today. You know, I always have a foundational Bible verse for you. But really, before I start that, good evening, Kim and Yolanda. Let's move into really, this is the second part of a series. So I started the series last week with What's Love Got to Do with It? And I poured into the first step of my brain's framework, which is what you're passionate about. Today, I'm going to talk about the second step of my brain's framework, which is these are the four steps to number one, live as the highest and best version who God created you to be, and number two, to create multiple streams of income around it, right? So the second step in my brilliance framework, and oh, by the way, I call it your brilliance instead of just your purpose, because Matthew 5:16 says, let your light so shine among men and women that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So that light, that gift, that brilliance in you is meant to shine. And so I call it brilliance because when it's all turned all the way up, my goal is that you are shining so bright that your gift cannot be denied. It can't be denied. It can't be duplicated because there's one best version of you, and that's you. Mhm. So as we talk about the second step of the brilliance framework, which is proficiency, what are you great at? See, that thing that you have a natural propensity for, that you naturally are gifted for, is not coincidental. God knew exactly what He was doing when He dropped that gift in you. And that's what I mean batteries are included, because you came here wired already. So here's our Bible verse for today. Ephesians 2:10. And it says, and every version says something different. I don't remember which version this was, to be honest with you. We are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand so that we would walk in them. I'm going to read that one more time. Ephesians 2:10. We are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand so that we would walk in them. Now, here's what I want you to get. So, as I was studying this and really looking at how do I dig deeper into your proficiency, this is something I work through with my people in the Faith Purpose Profit Circle. And I know Kim is in there, and Sanji is in there, Nikki's in there, that are here live with us right now. So we dig deep into this as part of our work. So I'm always going to go around the edges because there's so much more context to it. So even in this Bible verse, Ephesians 2:10, in my Tony Evans commentary Bible, right? So I love this because it breaks down Bible verses even more so. I'm going to read parts of it, not all of it, okay? So this is under Ephesians 2:10. It's a lot, so that's why I'm only reading parts of it, okay? It says, God is crafting your life into a piece of art. See, God is the workman. Think about what a workman does at that art table. I love that T.D. Jakes calls his church the potter's house, because the potter is sitting at that potter's reel doing, sculpting something so special in you. So God knew exactly what he was doing. He said that that pot is ready to create you. Okay. Now, it goes on to say, good work is a divinely prescribed action that benefits others in such a way that God is glorified. We'll talk more about that next week. But here's the next thing it says, God saved you for his purpose and pleasure. Many are unfulfilled and miserable because they've never gotten around to the work God has for them. It's good, right? Say it one more time. Many are unfulfilled and miserable because they've never gotten around to the work God has for them. So I'm going to walk you through two steps, but there's so many layers underneath those two steps to really look at how you came here wired, because batteries were already included. Matter of fact, you didn't even need batteries. All you need is I used to be excited when I was little. When I got a little older, when I was younger in the 70s, we needed batteries. But as toys got advanced, they stopped needing batteries, and we could actually plug them in because they were already wired to work. Come on, somebody. Somebody will get that later. Okay. So my first question to you is, how are you wired? I call this your DNA, your distinct natural ability. The thing I think is so interesting, and those of you that have been around me for a while, you know that I did a study on DNA a couple years ago. I see other people joining in, so tell us where you're from as you're coming in. I did a study on DNA a couple years ago. And here's the thing I think is so interesting is that we have 2.4 billion cells in each of us. And no two people have the same molecular makeup. 2.4 billion cells, but no two people have the same molecular makeup. Can you imagine that? So nobody looks like you. Nobody has the same DNA makeup that you do. So when you're trying to copy somebody else, you're telling God he didn't know what he was doing when he put that DNA in you. We don't take the time to get clear on how you are wired. You're telling God that he did not know what he was doing when he put that DNA in you. When you really think about and look at who have you always been? It's interesting, even in my own journey, and I put this in my last book, Find Your Fierce. Those of you that read it, let me see if I can grab this picture out real quick. I didn't think about this at this moment. Gotta open my cabinet and grab my book out. This is me being rogue while I'm live. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. So in this book, there's a picture of me when I was 3 years old. And those of you that if you've been to a workshop, I usually show this. There it is on a slide. Now that 3-year-old, like which way do I show it? Okay, there it goes. That 3-year-old has, number one, when my husband was doing a roast on me a couple of years ago, he said that he and my mom went through all these pictures of me, and number one, every single picture I'm talking. Well, hello, no coincidence. That what do I do for a living? I talk. Love it. But now I talk with purpose, on purpose, with purpose. I have strategy. I'm not just flapping my guns for nothing. I'm using my power for good, right? The second thing you notice about this picture, 3-year-old little picture, is there's a baby carriage here. And there's no baby in that baby carriage. What 3-year-old do you know that's not playing with a baby? Not me. By the way, I don't have any natural children of my own. I have two phenomenal stepchildren, bonus children, I call them, because they're a bonus added blessing. And I have grandchildren too. But the point is, there's papers and books in that baby carriage because I've always been a natural producer. That's the way I am wired. So who have you always been? What have you been overlooking about you? One of the examples I always like to use when I talk about this is Gwen Torrance. Gwen Torrance is an Olympic sprinter. Matter of fact, she was known to be the fastest woman alive in the 90s, 1995 to be exact. And she ran a race. She won. She ran this Olympic race, and she won it. Long story short. So if you've watched the Olympics, especially recently, you see what happens after they win. They stop. They catch their breath. After they catch their breath, they kind of take a victory lap, right? But while all of that was happening, the judges are watching the replay, and apparently she won running in somebody else's lane, which gets you disqualified in track and field. And here's the thing I want you to get about me sharing that story. As many of you are living your life running in somebody else's lane. You haven't gotten clear on how God wired you and the specific work he created you to do. And so what you're doing is living outside of the lane God created you to dwell in. So my first question to you is, how are you wired? What's the thing that people look, your boss ask you to do special assignments. You get calls to be on committees. People call you for things, and all of those things are around the way you're wired, but you overlook them. Mhm. And so I have a second step for you. But literally, this first step is really in alignment with many of you guys have heard me talk about my live 2 day intensive that I do called Be the Answer. Let me tell you why I do this 2 day intensive. Because many of you have what I call blind spots. Blind spots. See, you're who you are every day you wake up, you on autopilot. So for you to actually realize the gifts that are in you, you probably realize 10% on your own because you don't do what you do to you. And so it's so hard to get clear on the wire because it's inside of you. And again, you don't do what you do to you. So one of the reasons I hold this 2 day intensive is to help you get clear. So I'm going to show you a quick commercial on why I hope Be the Answer. Then I'll come back and walk you through step 2. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Nicole Roberts-Jones, the creator and host of the Be the Answer 2 day intensive live event. Now, when I think about having my event and actually going to any event, it makes me think about the experience I had when I attended my very first event over 5 years ago. See, I attended that event because, to be honest with you, my business was failing and I knew I needed help. Now, that was despite the fact that by that time I had been in business for over 17 years. I said 17. And I want you to get this. For all intents and purposes, I looked successful, but I was only generating, 17 years in now, I was only generating $13,000 a year. And because of that, I was ready to quit. I was ready to throw in the towel. I was ready to just give up on being an entrepreneur altogether. Now, that was back in November of 2010. And in that moment, I signed up for a free webinar. And after watching that free webinar, I registered for the conference that they invited me to on that webinar. See, I registered for the conference. I bought my plane ticket. I booked my hotel because I said to myself, this is going to be my last try. And I got to tell you, attending that conference, it changed my business and actually it changed my life. Now, I took a risk in going. I got bold, I got radical, and I got the guts to really go after what I wanted. And because I stepped up and stepped out, what happened was when I got to this event, I got tools. I learned from experts. I got the insight on how to move from the hustle I was in to truly making money. See, I got clear on how to create a bigger picture. I got clear in that room and I got committed on that day to being the answer. And here's what I want you to get. See, because I took action, because I got tools and I signed up for a mastermind all at that event, is how I went from making $13,000 a year to making over $200,000 a year in my business. Now, I share that with you because that's the exact reason I wanted to create Be the Answer. See, when I was making $13,000 a year, I knew I was doing the very thing I was meant to do, but I just had taken myself as far as I could take myself. And that's where many of you are. You have been in business, but you are not reaching the level of success that you desire and, quite frankly, you deserve. And it's time. It's time for you to move into your next, into your more. See, I wanted you to have the same experience from all that I learned, the contacts I made, the coach I hired, and the action that I took at that event that allowed the meaning I was already making to actually make me money. And when I'm talking about money, I'm talking about 6-figure, 7-figure success. And yeah, that's why I created Be the Answer. See, at Be the Answer, we're going to help you completely change the way that you're doing business, the way that you have productivity in your business, the way that you have and are creating multiple streams of income. We're going to look at the way you're serving the world, and we're going to make sure you have the systems and the strategy in place so that you can and will be successful. See, all of that matters. And you can work harder and you can work harder, you can work harder, but you're doing the same thing over and over will keep producing the same result. And so that is why I created Be the Answer for every woman entrepreneur that's out there that knows that there's abundance with her name on it waiting for her. If that's you and you're ready for your more, then I look forward to seeing you at Be the Answer. All right. So that's a little insight about Be the Answer. By the way, I created that video over 7 years ago. This is my 7th year doing Be the Answer. And when I created that video, I really was so excited about creating what I know I needed. I had to go over here and get a little bit, a little here and go a little over here and get a little bit. I had to piecemeal my transformation together, and I don't want that for you. So that's why I created that video. And by the way, men, you're invited too. When I first made this video, I was only speaking to women, but God has pivoted my purpose. And so this event is for men and women. So if you know it's your time and you want support to grow your purpose focused business, then make sure you get in a seat. It's very limited. We're almost halfway sold out. I know by the end of this week, we will be halfway sold out. So if you know you should be in the room, we keep it intimate, only 30 people. Mm-hmm. So don't wait. Get your seat. BeTheAnswerEvent.com. So let me go back into teaching because I have so much more to give you. So much more to give you. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask. And the reason I stopped there is because I'm going to tell you this right here between last week's conversation and this week's conversation, those two, your passion and your proficiency, come together to speak to what your purpose is. And I'm going to tell you, this is the stuff people overlook and they try to rush past it. Like, I know what that is. But when you're not clear, you're running in somebody else's lane. When you're not clear, you're holding up somebody's answered prayer, because that's what you are. When you're not clear, you're being a second rate version of somebody else. You know, I was in a clubhouse last year, probably about this time. It might have been, it had to have been last year because Clubhouse hasn't been around that long. And a woman was asking me about her business. She said, listen, I saw so and so making profit doing this, and I saw such and such making profit doing this. And so I did the exact same thing, and I'm not making any money. Why? Because it's not your DNA. It's not in alignment with how God created you. So when you're not clear on your passion, your proficiency, and how that speaks to the third step, which I'll talk about next week, the answer to the problem you were created to answer in this world, your business, you'll never make the profit you're meant to make. Which moves us into number two of our conversation tonight, because batteries are included, right? God didn't forget to include your batteries. It's called a wiring that's already inside you, right? So number one is, how are you wired? What's your DNA? What's the thing that you're already naturally great at? You have a natural propensity for some things. You have a natural, like, listen, you can tell me an idea and I can end to end see how to execute it within minutes. I can see how you can make money at it. I can see how to package it. I can see it all. I'm a natural producer through and through. I can also see how to put you in it, meaning I can see the right role for you in your business, because casting and producing is what I do. Always been that girl. Been that since I was 3. At least that's the earliest pictures I could find, right? So how are you wired? How have you always been wired? Okay. Problem is, many of you guys are running in somebody else's lane because you haven't taken the time to get clear. And I'm gonna tell you, I wasn't clear either. You heard my story. I just told it. It wasn't until I hired my coach, which she cost me 30,000, by the way, and I told you I was making 13,000 in my business. I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford not to do it. The point I'm making is, she showed me my blind spots. Many of you are functioning, driving your car, getting over without looking. You know, it's interesting. They tell you you have a rear view mirror and you have a side mirror, but they tell you to look, turn your head all the way around and look, because there's a whole blind spot where your gift. Sometimes you've been functioning in your blind spots and you don't even know it. Most times, that was me. That's why I failed in business for years, right? So number one is, you got to get clear on how you're wired. Number two, you've got to look at what is your power source. I'm going to give you a couple of various power sources that we all deal with. Number one, are you plugged in with an extension cord? Somebody gonna get these things. God was dropping this stuff in me this morning. I was getting excited, like, like I was teaching myself. But anyway, listen, your extension cord are your external influences. Things people have said to you, you should do this, and this is how you should do this, and this is right. And sometimes they're not speaking for how you're wired. I remember growing up in South Central LA. Right. I remember growing up in South Central LA, and many people saying, "Can I keep it real with y'all? Nicole, you should just meet a man that will take care of you." I'm like, "What do you mean I should marry a man that should take care of me? So I shouldn't try to grow my own gift. I shouldn't get in alignment with what God created me. He didn't just create me to be a wife. I'm that too. But I have my own lane to swim in or to dominate in. I don't need to try to get in somebody else's lane. I sure don't need to get on the back of a man to do it. Come on, somebody." But what we don't sometimes stop long enough to realize is that external influences will actually shift how we see our brilliance. Sometimes things have happened to you, or people have said things to you that make you doubt who you are. Some of you have gone through some very devastating things, molestation, rape, and I don't want to discount that. But I believe when all these things come after you, your mess can become your message. If you allow your mess to be a message, because somebody needs to know that they can get through by seeing you get through it. But the extension cord will sometimes tell you that you're not smart enough. How dare you do this? I remember my friends, some of them, not all of them, used to say, "Well, who do you think you are?" Well, who am I not to do this? Did I know what I was doing? Oh, yeah, sometimes no. But the one thing I'm not going to do, I have you, all of us have two choices. You can either allow perception to be your guide, or you can let God be your guide. You can't have both. Just came in my head right now, right? So perception or God, which one? Which way you gonna go? And then sometimes it's self judgment. You judging yourself for where you should be, and I should have done this by now, and it's okay. Listen, I was reading an article, or did I see this on Good Morning America? It's no telling you. I read articles, I watch the news, I watch podcasts. I don't know where I got this from. This 81-year-old woman just started her business. 81. It's never too late. Stop letting other people judge you. Maybe God just dropped in your spirit. Listen, if Sarah, and those of you that don't know Sarah in the Bible had a baby in her 90s. And my husband's a scientist is like, how is that possible? I'm like, God, stop trying to figure it out, scientist. It's never too late. I bet you Sarah would have had it earlier had she not got in front of God and tried to create her own plan. Those of you that don't know the story of Sarah, God came to Sarah and Abraham and said, you're going to have a baby in your old age. Well, Sarah started trying to figure it out her own self and said, well, maybe I'm meant to give my handmaiden to my husband and she's meant to have a baby for us. That's her trying to figure it out instead of trusting God. Right, Renata says sometimes you have to shift your circle. Exactly. Sometimes you got to take that, get the right extension cord. Sometimes y'all need one of those power strips. Come on, somebody. Power strip, when a power surge happens, will not mess up your systems. But when you have an extension cord, an old school extension cord, I thought I had an extension cord around here, but I don't. You have a power surge, oh, your stuff is all messed up, right? So you got to be mindful of what are you plugged into? Are using extension cord. Maybe you need new batteries. Sometimes your wiring is bad. You know, I promise you, my iPhone, I have to trade it in. How many of you guys get frustrated with this? It feels like every 3 to 4 years I got to get a new iPhone. I think they do that on purpose, by the way, but we're not going to have an iPhone conversation tonight. But here's what I want you to get. The wiring is going bad. Sometimes you just need a recalibration of the wiring. And for many of you, you're trying to do something new with the old mindset. There's a Bible verse. You can't put new wine in old wineskins. Well, that's what's happening because you're looking at your gift, your brilliance from who you already are. When God is up leveling the way you've been serving, it's going to take a whole new mindset. You need to shift your wiring. Some of y'all might need to upgrade your wiring so that you can get to it. And then some of you, and by the way, some of you might need all three of these. Again, what's your power source? Is it an extension cord? Do you need new wiring? Or do you need to get either plugged directly in or there's a fourth one? Well, let me say the third one first. Or do you need and I just said this a minute ago, a power, a surge protector. I'm looking down because I have one down here. You know, those long, thick cords. I should have had these, so could have showed you an example. A surge protector. See, that's getting around the right people. When you have a surge protector, they're going to give you advice because they've been in the journey. You don't need advice from people that haven't been there, done that. You don't need advice from people that don't know what they're doing when you're doing this purpose focused business. There'll be people that love on you, that'll cheerlead you, and sometimes people give you advice and they love you and they think they're telling you great things to do. But if they have no clue, you have no business listening to them. Look at the power source. I'm just saying. Some people are what I call haters and don't want to see you do well. Listen, there's a Marion Wright Edelman, not Marion, Marion Williamson. That's what it is. Marion Williamson has this quote that, and it's a longer quote than this. But your light unconsciously gives when you stand in your light, it gives other people permission to unconsciously live in their own. But what happens is sometimes when you stir up other people's light, some of them aren't ready. So because they're not ready is how they become haters. Are they mad because you're growing faster than them when you're not in a race with anybody but you? When God wants you to accelerate and you're doing the work, oh, he's going to accelerate you, but you got to be doing the work. Okay. So you might need a surge protector, meaning getting in the right community. Another reason why I do my 2-day intensive Be the Answer. Everything I do is around community. I create community. Why? Because I know what happened for me when I met a community of people that were in the journey with me. Not have phenomenal girlfriends. Happy hour, yes. Going on vacation and just luxuriate, yes. Building a business, yeah, no, not so much. Now, a lot of my girlfriends are entrepreneurs now. But when I first started, I didn't have any entrepreneurial girlfriends. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I needed a power surge. I needed a surge protector. I needed a power surge too. And then number four, sometimes you just need to plug directly into the power source, which is the God, right? I don't say universe. I don't say what do people say? They call them other things. I'm like, why would I call it the universe or any other word when I can talk about the God that created the universe? So I'm clear. And here's the thing. So I talk about this with my clients. We call ourselves human beings, but we're not human doings because we focus on what do we need to do, what do we need to do, what do we need to do, but we never stop long enough to sit in our being. It's in our being that God can show up and show out and begin to show you who you are. I'll leave you with this. One of my favorite movies, Black Panther. And you remember the scene, and those of you who've been around me for a while, you know I love to act this scene out, so don't judge me with my horrible African accent, okay? So in the scene where King T'Challa, the first scene where the Bear King, Jabari, I think his name was trying to take the throne after King T'Challa's father had passed, and he gets anybody can challenge the throne, and so King Jabari, the Bear King, I think he's the Bear King anyway, um, is the only person that's coming to challenge it. And so literally, when he's down on the in the water, Jabari has knocked him down, and he doesn't look like he's going to get up. His mother, Angela Bassett, says, "Remember who you are." That's my horrible African accent. Remember who you are. And some of you have never known who you are. Some of you have never sat long enough to get clear on how you're wired. Some of you haven't plugged into the power source. You need to get rid of the extension cord, get you a surge protector, people that can make sure that your power is going to come into you fully, completely. Even dare I say that my computer and my microphone has been acting crazy. Do you know my husband came in here right before I went live and shifted my power source? He shifted my sound. So I'm like, oh my God, hello. I said, that's what I'm going to teach on. So that's our conversation for part one of batteries are included. Now, many of you know that on Tuesday mornings, we go deeper into part two in our clubhouse Tuesday mornings. Every Tuesday morning, 8:30 a.m. EST. I'm going to invite you to join me. So I give you the great landscape and some great insight in part one, which is what I just did. And part two, we dig deeper, and that'll be tomorrow morning. And the reason I do this in two parts is this. I want to hear your voice. I can't hear you here in our lives, but I can hear you in Clubhouse. I want to hear your insight. I want to answer your questions. I want to dig deeper because the conversations we're having here are needed if you're going to go after you abundantly above all and live as God intended for you. So, with that said, it's always my honor and privilege to coach you, teach you, share, give you insight, dig deep into all that you need to connect faith with purpose and profit. That's our goal in our FPP lives. So, I'm going to ask you for a couple favors. Number one, if you got any value, I want to hear about it. Please comment. Tell me what you got most out of this episode. The second thing I'm going to ask you to do is share. Now, I don't ask you to share because I'm trying to grow my likes. I'm not trying to grow my likes, but I am trying to make sure every person that needs this content gets it. And so, those of you, if you're in my Facebook group and you're watching the live, come on over to or go to FPPLive.Live, and you'll see this video where you can share it with everybody in my group. You can't share it unless they're in the group, right? Because you don't know who around you has been praying for this insight, and your one share will bless somebody. So, with that, I look forward to seeing many of you tomorrow morning as we dig deeper into this conversation in Clubhouse. All right. So, until then, have a phenomenal night. And I'll see you next week, tomorrow, and next week for more FPP Live.